So yesterday, Senator Chuck Grassley releasing the long-awaited FD 1023 form alleging then Vice President Joe Biden was involved in a $10 million bribery scheme with a Burisma executive. For months, the Bureau has tried to bury this document. The memo was provided to Senator Grassley by yet another patriotic FBI whistleblower. Let's bring in our Friday panel, the host of the Trish Regan Show and editor-in-chief of TrishIntel.com, Trish Regan, and former California Congressman and CEO of Trump Media and Technology Group, Devin Nunes. Great to see the both of you. Trish, I want to begin with you. Now, we know Trump's Attorney General Bill Barr had reviewed this document well before the 2020 election, and he kept it a secret. I can't shake this feeling that this was somehow a GOP Democrat team-up willing to overlook criminal influence peddling all out of hatred for the America First candidate, President Trump. What does your gut tell you about all this?
I guess we don't like any of the parties right now, right? I mean, that's the frustration. If I hear you correctly, you're suggesting that maybe Bill Barr had a chance or a hand in that. Look, I don't know, and I don't want to go around making these accusations. What I can tell you, though, is that there was some effort somewhere to make sure that the American public had no clue that even so much the news that Hunter Biden's laptop was a subject of an investigation by the FBI. So as an American citizen, I'm just entirely frustrated by all the lying. And I think the damage done has been rather significant. Nobody trusts the government anymore on anything, because it turns out they keep telling us we're wrong when actually we're right. So think of the damage that has been done, and it leaves people not knowing what to think, Chris.
I think you're spot on. There is a deficit of trust with this government, and I believe they've earned it. Congressman, I want to ask you about how Republicans have handled this all along. There are still some Republicans who still believe it's Kennedy's Democrat Party. Let me give you an example. You had the Senate Republicans cross the aisle to pass the Democrats' priority, the omnibus, which was just terrible. You had these 20 Republicans who covered for Adam Schiff, who used the Intelligence Committee to launch attacks against Americans, against Republicans. And when they had the chance to hold him accountable, 20 Republicans said, no, we can't do that. We can't hold Democrats accountable. Isn't it time that the Republican Party recognize the current incarnation of a Democrat Party that just yesterday attacked one of their own, saying that he didn't have the right to free speech in America?
Yeah. I was wondering if you were going to mention that, Chris, when you brought up the Democrats not being the party of Kennedy anymore. That was clear yesterday, that at a censorship hearing, they tried to censor Kennedy. I don't know if you caught that, but they actually tried to go and move to executive session so that Kennedy couldn't speak publicly. I mean, that's how far they've gone away from free speech and the Kennedy family, the iconic Democratic family. Now, I think that the key dates here, you talked about Bill Barr, and I think that is a problem. It's also a problem for the 51 supposed military intelligence officials who covered up the Hunter Biden laptop. But there's something buried within that FD 1023, and that is that they had a lot of this information in 17 and 18 and 19. Now, why is that important? I was the guy who had to lead the Republican side of the investigation into the first Ukrainian impeachment hoax. Now, don't you think we were leading that investigation? We wanted all information relating to Ukraine, Burisma, et cetera, et cetera. So you had Trump's own Justice Department, and that's how corrupt this is, and FBI, knowing that President Trump was being impeached, and they hid that document and those sources from all of America at that time period.
Wow. You know what? Now that you've connected the dots, that makes it even more damning. I do want to pivot to some other things that are of import that has the nation's attention. Trish, and you've got a lot of experience in this next thing I wanted to cover. A biological man won the Miss Netherlands beauty pageant. That made a lot of headlines. Just today, the Miss Italy competition is setting some boundaries, finally. According to the rules, candidates must be a woman from birth. Now, you have extensive experience as a winner and a judge in these contests. What's your evaluation of this ping pong, this issue going back and forth?
Yeah, that's right. I just judged Miss America this past December. Back in my day, and we're going back a ways, you used to have to sign a contract like Miss Italy, swearing that you had been born a female. I thought it was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. Seriously, Chris, in my life. I mean, I was really young. I was like 19 at the time. But I was like, wow, like why? Clearly, they were ahead of their time there at Miss America, because now we're living in an environment where biological men indeed want to compete and are competing. Interestingly, in Miss Netherlands, this is actually somebody who went through the process of the transition, like the full operation and the whole bit. But that's why it's somewhat interesting that Miss Italy is taking it even further. All of these pageants, by the way, are individually owned, while the entire franchise for this particular one, this would be Miss Universe, that's actually owned by a transgender in out of Asia. So, like, I guess this is one way to make beauty pageants. The feminists should be like rejoicing over this, right? You want to really make them sort of irrelevant. If you don't like beauty pageants, suddenly you got men competing in beauty pageants. So women don't really want to compete anymore. You can understand how they feel.
Well,
it makes them awkward.
Frankly, yes. I really think that men ought not be competing against women in sports and in beauty contests. I prefer my Miss America to actually be a miss, but maybe that's just me. Congressman, the company that was formed to take Truth Social public settled a lawsuit with the SEC for allegedly misleading investors about its plans for Trump media. Given the amount of anti-Trump bias from the majority of this current government, just from my own feeling, it feels like another political targeting to me. Tell me what the real scoop is, and how is Truth Social planning to handle this moving forward?
Well, that's the point that we've been making for a long time, that there's not an area of the government that the Biden administration hasn't corrupted in some way or somehow. And it includes the SEC. We've been very clear from the beginning. How did we get here? It was because all of the social media companies not only banned the sitting president of the United States, but they banned or shadow banned millions of other Americans. And the left, they all said, well, you guys are Republicans. Go out and create your own company. So what does President Trump do? He goes out and creates his own company. I left Congress. I always say that President Trump didn't need a new company. I didn't need a new job. But we had to do this to open up the internet in order to give the American people their voice back. So we've been waiting patiently for them to go about this. I'm glad that Congress is finally has stepped in. They've begun to investigate this, because I think if you start to peel this back piece by piece, you're going to see massive corruption and the politicization of another government agency. And that's what you're going to find. So look, we're here to help. We want to get this done. We want to have access to the capital markets. But the Biden administration has made it very, very difficult.
Took the whole conversation full 360 right there, all the way around the horn. Devin, Nunes, Trish, Regan, guys, have a great weekend. Thanks for your visit today, as always.